Hello and welcome everyone in this new video where we will create the woods for our bridge. Okay, so this is where we stopped last time, and let's basically start creating the wood pieces that will basically be right here. Also, please excuse my garbage drawing. First of all, what is the closest shape to these elements? Well, it is simply a cube, and that's what we exactly will start with. We will go Shift A and let's add a cube. We're not seeing the final result, so we need to add basically a group output, and the easiest way is basically to just get this link, and let's bring this group output right here, and let's connect this to this, and we will have our cube right here. We need to change the shape of this cube, so the size actually is a little bit tricky because later on we need, to a certain extent, it needs to be a little bit procedural, so it does adapt to the size of the whole bridge. In a logical way, the main setting that we're going to play with is actually the Y, which will control the width of basically the wood pieces. So we need to play a little bit with the Y, and for the X and Z, they'll probably be static. For the size, let's say that for the X axis, let's say it's gonna be 0.6. So it is that slim in terms of X axis. And for the Z axis, let's say 0.2. And this is kind of more or less look like the shape of a wood piece that will be laid on a bridge. And for the Y axis, this bad boy needs to be controlled basically depending on the width. We will build that procedural system later in this video, so don't worry about that now. The other thing, basically, this cube must be, or actually these wood pieces shouldn't be like super straight like this. That's why we need to make them basically a little bit more distorted. And to do this, there is a really nice technique, which is basically by adding a set position, and I'm going to explain what does this node do. Basically, this node will allow you to change the location of this wood piece, but the most important thing is that if we tell Blender to basically change the location of every vertex, we will be able to create more or less a sense of distortion or displacement on this wood piece. Here's what we will do. I'm going to go Shift A and let's add a noise, and I'm going to take the color and plug it to the offset, and notice what will happen. Basically, we're distorting this wood piece based on this noise texture. But here's the tricky part. As you can see, it is basically right now moved up because this noise texture works from values from 0 to 1. That's why this thing basically get leveled up. So to keep it in the middle, we need to bring it by 0.5 down. So we need to eliminate 0.5 from this interval. So it will become minus 0.5 to 0.5. And this is actually super simple, and all we have to do is basically to add a node called subtract. So go Shift A and let's look for subtract. It is not called subtract, sorry, it is called vector math. So vector math, and let's plug it here. Basically, yeah, for this one, where did this factor is going? Nope, we don't need the factor. I think I connected it by mistake. And let's do this to change it to subtract, and we need to subtract 0.5 from every axis. So let's do 0.5, and as you can see right now, it is back on the middle of our scene. We need to play a little bit with all of these different settings right here. So let's say this is going to be 0.1. For the detail, let's keep it at 2, and for the roughness, let's keep it 0.5. And I don't see much distortion happening because probably my wood piece is a little bit low res, and I need to play a little bit with these different vertices. Let's subdivide this a little bit more on the y-axis, something like 15. So there is a little bit of distortion happening right now. Let's bring this to something like 7. And for the z-axis, let's say 5. And more or less, we're getting some distortion right now on this wood piece. But still, it looks pretty harsh. So let's add a subdivision surface after this set position node to smooth everything out. So go Shift A and let's look for subdivision surface. Let's put it here, and for the level, I'm just gonna, I think, keep it at 1. I don't need to change it, and basically this will be our wood piece. And right now we need to combine everything, so let's bring this group input right here, and also I'm just going to hit cut this link. And here's another shortcut that I just want to mention. Hit Shift and click on this socket. So we selected this socket. Let's move to this join geometry, Shift and click on this socket, and then hit F, and this will basically join everything together. So we connected two very distant nodes together. So this is really handy. And in case you're wondering what did I just do, I basically connected the last node that we created, the subdivision surface. I just connected it with this join geometry. So we should be right now seeing everything. Now comes the trickiest part. I always say that, but It is not tricky. It is actually pretty simple. We need to tell Blender that, hey, Blender, we want you to put this wood piece along these curves. Basically, they should be like this. So how can we do that? Well, we used that node actually before, and which is the instance on points, which is the node that allow us to put something based on the points. So I'm going to add another instance on points. So let's look instance on points. Make sure you don't use 2 points. This is not the node we need. On points. Let's do it here, and let's move this bad boy right here. We don't need this to be connected to the points. We want it to be connected to the instance, because as I mentioned before, the instances will be distributed on the points. In our case, we want the wood pieces, which are the instances, to be distributed on the points, and the points are the singular or the individual points constructing all of these different curves that act like the ropes. So where do we get these information from? From the curves, from the ropes, and the ropes are right here. Basically, we need the result that is coming out of this output, because what's coming from this output is basically these curves, the original curves. So in short, we need to connect this to, here. We need to connect this to the instance. So let's connect it to the instance. And the first thing that you will see basically that there are a lot of wood pieces right now. A lot of wood pieces, and it is looking a little bit weird. Oh no, because I actually connected it by mistake. I need to connect this actually to points, so, and connect this to instance. Yeah, right now everything is looking fine. I just connected them in the wrong order. Make sure to connect the result coming from this, make sure to connect it to the points where we want to put the wood. And as you can see, we're getting a result looking like this, which actually looks like they are stairs, not wood pieces. The main reason for that is that, first of all, they should be kinda rotated. They should not be basically perfectly looking like a stair. They should follow the rotation of these curves. So we need to get this information out, okay? We need to somehow extract the informations of rotation from this curve. And this is actually also not that complicated. Here's what we will do. So, as you probably remember, we're getting the information about these points from here. So we need to extract all of those informations. Here's what we will do. We're going to convert the points, the data that is coming out of here, we're going to convert it from basically the mesh to something else, which is points. Here's what I mean. I'm going here and I'm going to add a node called curve to points. We're converting the curves to points, which is basically the result we're getting from here. And for whatever reason, it got basically plugged in the mounts group. So hit Alt-P to remove it from that group. And let's bring this whole node tree a little bit down so it will become clear what we're doing. This curve to point does have a couple of really handy settings. Mainly, we can right now change the count of how many wood pieces we need, which is really neat, so that we can control that later, how much of wood pieces has been removed or turned out from our bridge. And at the same time, we do have this rotation socket, which, if we somehow plug it to the rotation, let's take the rotation to the rotation, notice what will happen. They will follow the direction or the rotation of this curve. Yes, it is definitely happening on the wrong axis, and there is a way of how to fix that, and we will do that. But as far as we are basically interested, at least this node will give us a couple of information about the rotation. So how can we change the rotation of all of these different elements? By adding another node called rotate instances. Let's put it right here, and all you have to do is basically to rotate it on the y-axis 90 degree, so they are basically right now pointed this way, and also on the z-axis 90 degree. And as you can see, they are perfectly right now following the direction of this curve. Okay, perfect. So this is where we are right now. And don't worry, we're going to clean this geometry node later. There is another thing that I want to do, and here's what I mean. Basically, if you can see, I don't want to have a wood piece in the first basically point and on the last point, because they are clipping into my mounts. So I need to remove them. This is not actually super complicated. We only need to tell Blender to delete this point and also delete this point, the that are basically in the beginning. To do such thing, there is a really handy node called delete geometry, and I'm going to put it before the curve to points. Right now it will delete everything, but I don't want it to delete everything. I only want it to delete 1 point from the beginning and 1 point from the end. So what is the node that allow me to select the ends or the edges of my curve? Well, it is the node that we used before, which is called endpoint selection. So go here and let's look for endpoint selection. Let's put it here and let's plug it to selection. And right now, as you can see, we're deleting only 1 point from the beginning and 1 point from the end. Let's bring this up to 2. And as you can see right now, this is looking neater. We don't have this wood piece that used to be clipping through our mount. So this is way better. And the other thing, which is basically more of a stylistic choice, but I'm just gonna do it, which is if you focus, basically all of these wood pieces are oriented the same way. They all do have the same orientation. But I actually want to create, or actually let's add some randomness to them. So some wood pieces will be slightly tilted down, some others might be tilted based on the z-axis and all of that. So to do that, it is actually pretty simple. We just want to introduce a little bit of randomness to the rotation. And when I say random, this is basically begging to use either a noise texture or something more subtle like a random value. And as the name states, this node will generate a random value. But in our case, we're working with purple socket, which means that we're working with vectors, which does have 3 numbers. So we need to change it from float to vector, and we need to mix this with the result coming out of these curved 2 points. This one, we need to mix it with this one. So what is the node that will allow us to do such thing? It is the vector math. Let's just put it here, and I'm going to add this to this. And as you can see, we're introducing a little bit of random rotation to these elements, to every single wood piece. We need this effect to be way more subtle. So let's just change the minimum value. Or actually, you know what? Let's play first with the maximum value. Let's say 0.15. Let's also bring this down to something like 0.03. And let's reduce this a little bit to something like 0.05. We'll have something looking like this. And for the minimum value, we can probably bring this a little bit down. Let's also bring this a little bit to something like minus 0.03. And let's say minus 0.05. Minus 0.05. And as you can see, we just introduced a little bit more variation to all of these wood pieces, like, so they're not perfect. They are imperfections, let's say, because imperfections are the perfection of the real world. I just said that. Anyway, by doing this, we technically, I guess we finished creating all the different elements of these wood pieces. And we need right now to build a procedural system that will allow us to control all of that. Let's think about it in a logical way. These wood pieces should follow the width, okay? But right now they do not follow the width. What is the thing controlling the width? It is in the settings of the cube, we do have this Y, which is basically responsible in controlling the width of also the wood pieces. So if you remember, we do have a group input right here, which is called width. So this width, which is this one, will also control the width of the y-axis of the cube. Let's add a combine XYZ. So go Shift A and let's look for combine XYZ. Why am I adding it? I'm just going to say it one more time. Basically so that I can change every setting on its own. So for the X, let's put 0.6. For the Z, it is going to be 0.2. So let's put 0.2 and let's plug this here. Right now it is 0, but it's not a big deal because we can always change that. And for this Y-axis, it should also be connected to the width, which is this width. So I'm going to take this and let's move it to this Y. Let's put it here and shift to create a rerouting node, and let's put it here so that this will basically be a straight line. So technically, right now, everything will change its size together. But there is a small issue. It is not basically reaching the ends, so it needs to be a little bit bigger. And to do this, all you have to do is to add a math node before this, which is a multiply node. So go Shift A and let's look for math. Let's put it right here. And let's change its type from add to multiply. Let's start increasing this number until we get a result we're satisfied with. Let's say 2.5. This is a little bit too much, I guess. Let's say 2. No, 2.2. Yeah, I think that this will work. So right now it is reaching the ends, and technically, if we start changing the width, yep, this is really good. basically we're able to change the width of this bridge, and the wood pieces will also adapt to the width that I'm going to input right here. Let's say 3.5. And yeah, this is our procedural system for the width element that will control also the wood pieces. The other thing that I might want actually also to change from here is actually the count, which is this node right here, which will allow me to control how many wood pieces have been removed from my bridge. And this is actually super simple. I just need to create another socket right here. So let's go to group and create another one. And I'm going to call it boards count. I think that this makes sense. And for its type, we don't want it to be float because we don't want like 1.5. There is no such thing as 1.5. A number of piece of wood should be an integer, which is basically mean 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You never say like I have 1.5 wood. Doesn't make any sense. So we need to change it from integer, which means they are basically numbers without any sort of like .001 or any of that. They're basically just numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. In mathematics, they are called natural numbers. So let's take the boards count and let's plug it to the count of this curve to point node. Let's plug it to the count and see what will happen. Basically, we will have the board counts right here. So when we start increasing it, we will be adding more and more boards. So let's say we want, let's keep it at 15, okay? And yeah, this is our node tree and we just build our wood pieces. The only thing, which is always the final thing that I want to do, which is basically to clean up my node tree a little bit. So let's hit Control Space Bar and let's start basically cleaning this whole mess that we just made. Let's start with this count, which is going all along this entire node tree. So shift right mouse button to create a rerouting node. Let's put it here. Shift right mouse button to create another one and let's put it here. And actually this was easy. So right now this is looking kind of cleaner. What are the other nodes that are causing some problems? Let's bring this a little bit up, just like so. Make them close to each other so they will be easy to recognize later. Also, I do have this mount, actually this link that is going right here. It will probably cause some problems because it is crossing the entire node tree and it might basically distract us later. So actually, I'm going to move this mounts, the thing that we created in the previous video, just like so. And this link right now is a problem. So let's hit shift and create another rerouting node and let's do it this way. If you want to remove something from a group, hit Alt-P. Let's remove it and basically we will have something looking like the following. Okay, and for this group, I'm going to move these two right here. Shift right mouse button to create another rerouting node and let's put it somewhere right here and let's move this. Oh man, it's getting complicated. GY, let's move this here. And what are the other nodes that we need to organize? Let's say do this. Okay. All right, it is looking way cleaner, I guess, by doing this. I might also actually do a shift right mouse button to add a rerouting node to this. So it will basically go like this directly to this join geometry here. All right, this is looking good. And the last thing I'm going to do is basically to select all of these nodes like this, hit Ctrl G to group them, and let's hit F2, and let's rename this to wood. Also, we should probably change the size under node, label size, let's bring it up to 64. And yeah, probably it's not that visible because nodes are hiding that, but it's not a big deal. This is our wood node group. And yeah, this is basically where we will stop for this video and I will talk to you all in the next one. See you there.